Good morning everyone. I thought I would do a short video of what to bring on a ride. So we get asked a lot in our forums before a ride. And today I've got up extra early and I think I'm quite well prepared. So I just thought I'd run through what I take. And this is kind of a minimum of what to take. So we have people who bring a lot more stuff, which is great because if you have any really bad mechanical failures, they have the right tools to use. But this is what I would say as a minimum, really. So start off with what to bring in terms of clothing. So it is actually winter at the moment, so it's pretty cold. So I've just got everything ready here. So I've got my kind of winter clothing and jackets and stuff like that. So making sure to wrap up warm. I generally don't have a pump on the bike. I think it's because it sort of rattles around when you're going down hills and stuff. So I usually have that on me as well. These are an absolute must, especially in the winter. These are overshoes, so these go over your cycling shoes. Keep your feet much warmer and drier as well. So my cycling shoes are down there, so I will be putting them on shortly. So back to the bike. Just got this back from the shop actually, so it should be in good nick. So just going to run through. So as you can see, let's start with the water bottles. So the way I do it, and it's always worked for me, is I have one with water, which is this little one here, and then I've got one with like energy drinking as well, which I use a powder. You can get them in any bike shop or any sports shop. You just put 3 scoops in, then top up with water, shake it enough, and it's done. In the summer especially, 2 water bottles. In the winter it's probably not needed, but always best to have too much rather than not enough. So I've got a Garmin as well, useful if you're leading the ride or in general, really good to track your progress and how fast you're going and that kind of stuff, and also if you get lost. So I do recommend getting something like this. Wahoo device is supposed to be very good as well. It's not an essential to come riding with us, but if you can afford it or you can see the return on investment in getting one, I would seriously recommend it. Generally, sort of bike things that I check for, make sure my brakes are okay and that they are working before I set off. My pads are actually a little bit low and I need to change them, so as a result of checking them and feeling them on the bike, just make sure there's nothing stuck in the pads if you've got caliper brakes like me and that they are working. Tyres, just make sure they're pumped up. We have a lot of people who turn up on rides with tyres that are not pumped up. The difference it makes to your performance on the day is huge and just generally slows down the group. So we ask that if you could check them before you come, that would be really good. Really easy, buy a track pump to pump them up, much easier than using a hand pump. And anywhere between sort of 85 psi up to 120. I personally go with about 90 to 100 because I find that if you go to 120 you're more likely to get punches, although it is a bit easier. So it's kind of personal preference, but make sure they're pumped up enough. If you have a look on Google, there's loads of advice on pumping up tyres. So just go into the actual what I'm carrying. I do always, especially in the winter, have a backlight as well. So if it starts raining or it gets really, really dull, generally you should have it on anyway, a bit like cars have their lights on in the winter, because it doesn't cause, it's not going to cause you any problems. If anything, it could save your life. So I always bring the backlight. Front light not as important, but by all means, if you want that extra security, then extra safety, then bring it along. Generally have a little look at the bike and make sure everything's okay, make sure the chain's working. If I have time, I'll clean the chain as well, especially in the winter after sort of muddy rides and stuff where you get loads of debris on the bike. So but I'm not going to go through that today. It's more about what to bring. So this has been a great investment. I really love this. It's a particularly good one. It's nice and big. I used to have a little one that I used to get bits in, but this gets everything I need. It's also got a nice little hole on the side here, and what you can do is you can bring a cable through and you can charge your Garmin. Should you get stranded and this thing start dying on you, you can actually charge it while you cycle, which brings me on to what's inside. It's a bit like Mary Poppins' bag in here. So this is a really important thing to bring, I find. So this is a power brick. So I always make sure before I go that it's fully charged, which it is. The reason why I bring this is 2 things. One, if I need to charge this, because believe me, they do go down, especially if you have an incident and you're roadside for 3 or 4 hours because of something that's gone wrong, or maybe not that long, but you know what I mean. It's handy to have this to charge. So always worth it. They're only cheap, to be honest, and I hardly ever use it, but it's always there for longer rides especially. So I'll go through everything that we've got here. What else have I got in here? So I've got a really nice little dainty USB cable to charge as well, because a lot of them are sort of big and bulky. This is a real cheap one, but it works and fits in there quite nicely. I've got a I've got a patch kit. Never ever use it, but should I want to, say I run out of tubes, if I have a particularly bad ride, I've got a patch kit there. It does have instructions in there as well of how to use it, but I generally am a bit lazy and just change the tube and then fix it later. Okay, so this is, you wouldn't necessarily need to bring this. So if, as a ride leader, it's probably a good one for our ride leaders to know this, if we had a situation where someone was really slow and we wanted to make sure they got home and they were happy to cycle on their own, I can strap this to their bike and then give them my Garmin, or anyone's Garmin, with the route on to get them home. So hardly ever, I think maybe once I've ever done that, which shows how how lucky we are really on some of the rides. But yeah, useful for me and other ride leaders. If you've got one of these, definitely worth having. Debit card, I will screen the number for security purposes. It's a no-brainer. Obviously you might need food, you might stop for coffee or snacks or whatever. Also, if you get stranded, you need to get a taxi or something. I mean, obviously we've got things like Uber now, but never ever would I go on a ride without that. I've actually got business cards in here, but you won't need them, just in case I get chatting to cyclists who want to know a bit more about Clapham Cycle. It's a good way of just giving them some information. I keep them in a thing so they don't get wet. I've also, I've got some, I always take a couple of quid in change as well, just in case you end up somewhere where they don't take cards and you need food. Always good to have food, so stick all this back in there. So moving to the back, so yeah, normally I'd have two in the tubes, but I think I've only got one at the moment. So I've got this as well, so this is a tool for adjusting your seat and adjusting various things on the bike. Definitely worth investing in. I've used this quite a few times on rides. Generally keep it in the back because it's not something hopefully you need to use that often. So these bags are really good. This is again a particularly good one because I can slide it on and off as well. Just this little release here, but it's a nice and big one. So in here I've got a tube and I've got two tie levers as well. I can actually fit two tubes in there, but I'm one down because I had a punch the other week. Not sure what this is in here. We'll have a look. What is that? I don't even know what that is. Oh, I know what this is. This is a spare hanger. So I had a ride once and people know about this a lot, where my hanger snapped. And I had to go to Gatwick to get another one because I had a ride the next day and it was an absolute nightmare. Since then, I've always carried one. So a very common thing to break on your bike is the hanger. So if you have problems with your gears or the wheel gets stuck or whatever, this is only plastic and it will snap. And what that does is it protects your frame. So rather than your frame taking the brunt of the incident, your little plastic hanger will snap and then you need to replace them. The problem is with BMC anyway, they're hard to get hold of. For the official one anyway, you can get kind of imitations, but the official ones are hard to get hold of. So I bought two of them. I thought I'll always keep one now because that was such a pain getting hold of it, and it nearly meant that I missed the ride the next day. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, wear things like if you've got stuff to make you more visible on the ride, high-vis jackets, that kind of stuff, especially in the rain, I would advise it. But that's kind of the bare minimum. Like I say, we have people who take things like pedal spanners and lots more tools, but as a beginner, if that's what you are, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'd just try and get the basics right. Get your tyres pumped up, that's a big one. The amount of times we've met people who've had 40, 50 psi in the tyres and they wonder why they're struggling to get up the hills. It makes such a difference. Just do a once over before you leave. Don't leave it to the last minute, do it the night before. Because sometimes as well, when you go to pump your tyres up, you will actually burst them. So little things like rim tape on the wheels, if that cracks, you'll burst the tyre when you pump it. So don't leave it till the morning. We'll do it the night before, because then if there is a problem, you've always got time to go to a bike shop. I mean, lots of bike shops are open till 8 o'clock at night now. So try and do as much as you can the night before. That way when you wake up, everything is good and ready to go. And that's it really, that's all from me. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'm going to stick this on YouTube, so post some comments. And yeah, hopefully that will speed you up in the mornings and keep you much safer. Thanks a lot. Cheers.